Tehibo Tea Club's original Pure Pouty Arco Super Tea helps build red corpuscles in the blood, which carry oxygen to our organs and cells. Our organs and cells need oxygen to regenerate themselves. The immune system needs oxygen to develop, and cancer dies on oxygen. So the tea is great for healthy people because it helps build the immune system, and it can truly be miraculous for someone fighting a potentially life-threatening disease due to an infection, diabetes, or cancer. The tea is also organic and naturally caffeine-free. A 1-pound package of tea is $49.95, which includes shipping. To order, please visit drinksupertea.com. The first word is drink, spelled D-R-I-N-K, then the word super, then the word tea. The complete website is drinksupertea.com, or call us at 818-965-9113, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. California time. That's 818-965-9113. drinksupertea.com.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
The American dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are on cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear we're on our way down. We must take America back. Main Street.
Welcome to the show. I'm broadcasting from my home studio in downtown Belfont, worldwide as National Intel Report on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio, Patriot Nation Radio Network, and anywhere else you see or hear the show. My name's Peter Serafine, and I'm going to be your host for this 2 hours of common sense and constitutional discussion. At the bottom of this first hour, so 6:30 Eastern time, if you're watching or listening live, retired Colonel Michael Ford, the managing editor of American Free News Network, is going to join us. He's got a couple of things that have fallen off the headlines that he'd like to talk about. And I still want to talk about Bidenomics. I can't believe that this guy in the White House wants to use economics as his campaign platform for re-election. I brought it up last week, but I didn't get very far with it because this is a live call-in show, and sometimes the calls pull us from one side to another. So let's start there. If you'd like to join the program, get your voice on the radio, call in to 512-248-8252. If you got a comment, but you don't want to, you don't want to be played on the radio, don't want to hear your voice on the radio, you can text that to me. That's 64 my rights, 646-974-4487. And before we get into Bidenomics, little update for those of you that do listen on a regular basis, update on some of my projects. Don't forget that my third book, my newest book, A More Tyrannical King, comes out on Constitution Day, September 17th. So you've got about 30 days to pre-order it, and I greatly appreciate it if you do. And by the way, I went out of my way to find a company that would allow me to publish it without going through Kindle Direct Publishing, which is Amazon's publisher. That's the easiest and fastest way to get a book on the market, is to go through KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. But I don't really like Amazon that much, and I know a bunch of you out there don't like Amazon that much, so I didn't use them. I went someplace else to publish my self-published book. So if you buy my book from anybody except Amazon, Amazon doesn't get a penny. Of course, if you buy it from Amazon, they get their cut. But if you buy it at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, bookshop.org, anything like that, Amazon doesn't get a penny of that money. I thought you might be interested in that. Then I've got the Liberty Lighthouse classroom that we're working on. I have the Duty of a Jury class up and ready to go. Anybody can enroll in it now. I have the Truth of America's Founding, Your Heritage and Mine, up and ready to go. Anybody can enroll in that one as well. And the Sheriff and the Citizen is the course that I'm currently working on. I have, I believe, 3 of the 8 lessons of that course up and ready. You can enroll and you can start watching, and if you get through those 3, you gotta wait for me to put up the next one. So that's about 18 hours worth of courses available at liberty-lighthouse.com/classroom. And I'd really love it if you would become a Lighthouse keeper. If you use code Lighthouse, that'll be $5 a month. And you can get all of those courses and all of my books and, well, anything else I might come up with between now and then. That's enough about me. Let's move on and talk about Bidenomics. President Biden keeps touting Bidenomics, but he does it with lies. He just recently, I think it was yesterday, he said that he reduced the deficit or the debt. He reduced the debt by $1.7 trillion. Well, that's a bold-faced lie. The debt hasn't rolled backwards in decades. He may have reduced the projected deficit spending, but he did not reduce the debt. Clear difference that most people don't know and won't catch when he says that lie. Now, I don't know, you could kind of say, the unemployment numbers are pretty good right now, but how much does the president really have to do with that? The unemployment numbers were bad because, well, the government shut down businesses and told everybody to stay home. And then all of a sudden they're allowed to go back to work. And he's trying to take credit for all of those millions of jobs, which of course is a lie. Now, I've got some numbers here I'm going to go through that prove that Bidenomics is not good for you and I, the average citizen. But I would love to hear your own personal story. If you've got a Bidenomic, impression, your vision, how has it hurt you or helped you? Let's just assume that there's somebody out there that's been helped by this president's economic policy. And if you're out there listening, I'd love to hear from you. 512-248-8252. So it was about a week ago, it was announced that American citizens they've amassed $1 trillion in credit card debt for the first time. Now, why would we have $1 trillion in credit card debt if the economy was good? If we were doing great, oh yeah, we're fine. We wouldn't be using credit cards the way that we're using credit cards. That's one thing. Another one that was really bad and has gotten a little better was natural gas. Now, if you don't use natural gas, you might not know this, but natural gas is sold by the thermo unit because, it expands and contracts with the temperatures. So they can't use, cubic feet. So they use this thermo unit. They shorten to a therm. So a therm of natural gas in July of 2020 was $1.77. And the therm of natural gas last month, July of 2023, was $2.55. That is a 44% increase in the cost of natural gas. So if you heat your home with natural gas like I do, that's going to hurt come winter. Now, it's not as bad as last year. Last year, 2021, a therm of natural gas in July was like $8. So it has come down some, but it's still a 44% increase over 2020. That's a problem. That's a problem for somebody trying to run on their economic policy. And it's a problem for somebody in middle America trying to heat their home with natural gas. Or a problem for most restaurants use natural gas to cook with. Speaking of restaurants, what about groceries? Groceries are something that everybody buys, and they're not used in the calculation of inflation anymore. So groceries could go up 800% and it wouldn't have any effect on inflation that is reported by our government. But well, the FDA is predicting a 6.3% increase in the cost of groceries this year. 6.3%. Everybody eats. That hurts everybody. Mike in Kentucky on line one. Welcome to the show.
I was just trying to look that up. Groceries are no longer part of the consumer price index for inflation?
No.
Wonder when that happened.
Anything that's volatile, they take out because they don't want it to, be a real indication of inflation. If you took prices from today and put them into the inflation calculator from, say, I don't know, 1978, Jimmy Carter years. Jimmy Carter's inflation rate was what, 14, 15%? And it cost him his presidency, and it cost Americans jobs. If you took today's prices and you went back to the 1978 inflation calculator method, you'd probably be closer to 20, 25% inflation. Because every time you turn around...
They're claiming in the last year, just looking at the last year, eating food away from home rose 7.1%. That's in the numbers from... it's presented on a Bureau of Labor Statistics for some reason from 8 days ago. Index for food away from home, whatever that means, 7.1% over the last 12 months.
Okay.
The full index service meals rose 5.8% over the last 12 months. But yeah, if you go all the way back to 1970 or something like that, it's crazy. I mean, that'd be pretty good evidence that throwing all your ballast off the balloon, meaning gold and silver. And of course, Nixon detached the dollar from gold, and then it got repriced from $35 to $50 an ounce. Of course, even in 1967, you could no longer get any silver for any of your silver certificates or United States notes. But so the balloon has no ballast,
right?
And so the sky's the limit. But there was a huge amount of inflation in 1981, I think, after Reagan took office. And, of course, it was all blamed on Carter. But, yeah, it was really hard to get jobs in the early 80s. And there was a huge jump in inflation there. Like home mortgage rates and stuff shot through the roof there for a while. So, if you go back and compare, you have to be careful because some people try to compare inflation to 1981, and when they do that, there was a huge amount of inflation in 1981, so it screws up the chart.
Right.
So who's pushing the pencil is what I always heard. There's liars figure and figures lie.
Yeah, you definitely have to pay attention to what you're comparing because it does fluctuate greatly from year to year. What I'm doing, just for the sake of argument of the numbers that I wrote down for this show, I did 2020 to 2023. Those are my comparisons because Biden is touting his economy's great. So I want to say, well, let's see, what was it the year before you became president?
Yeah.
Versus now.
Well, an executive order is jerking the rug out from underneath of established oil efforts. That didn't help at all. But in the previous show, and it took me quite a while to find this too, and you get through into these, trying to crunch the numbers. You just about can't trust anybody that's in the executive branch because they're under the thumb of Joe Biden.
Yep.
And but the previous show, this person mentioned this mountain bike video on the Lahaina fires. I finally found it, and I'll try to give the actual title for it because I couldn't It took me a while to find it. I just stumbled across it. If anybody wants to look at it, I recommend 2 videos: Lahaina Maui fires after dash bike riding on the scene. You should be able to find it with that much, but it's a longer title than that. But anyway, he's got like part 1 through 4. It's nearly an hour, and
Wow.
the drone, it's an hour and 2 minutes. The drone footage at the end is pretty interesting. It says free license granted. So I'll try to share that link over to the Facebook page for Republic Broadcasting. But the other video I'd recommend, if anybody wants to look at it, because the conditions leading up to that were just, I mean, I've lived through some dry Appalachian times where we were really, dried out and worried about fires, and a few fires did happen. But I've seen rings of fire growing up in the hills. They'll do that on slopes. They'll make a ring around stuff, but the wind was just phenomenal coming off the slopes, blowing into the sea. It was, I guess, an unusual direction for them because of the hurricane, but
Right.
it dried things out for days. I went back and looked at the past weather statistics at the airport, and there were several days going back into July where the humidity every day was dropping down to like 51% at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and it stayed low until, in the wee hours, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And you had winds of 20 to 25 miles an hour on every day, just drying out all the vegetation it could dry out. And so there's another video there, Lahaina Maui Fires video, which shows this guy who's trying to get out, and he does get out, fleeing the fires footage, and it shows just how those winds were drying everything out for I don't know how many hours, even making water spouts out on the ocean.
Yeah.
And his little video is like 41 minutes. So whatever might have happened to spark it, and if directed energy weapons were used or not, the conditions were really ripe for everything to go up. It's amazing that everything didn't go up. There's some, just a street divides some of these stores and houses from being burned down, 25, 40 feet maybe between the difference there between stuff being totally burned to ashes or left untouched. It is a little weird.
Yeah, it was almost like tornadoes where they'll, level 3 houses, then skip 2, and then level the next one.
Yeah,
It was a lot like that. I
so I
noticed.
mean, as far as proof of a directed energy weapons, I think it does look suspicious that there's already real estate people making people offers. That's just almost like an
Oh yeah.
insult. They haven't even
Well,
had a chance to
if you
to.
go back and look, there's if you really want to run down the conspiracy route, Hawaii recently passed some law that government can't ever own this land unless something catastrophic happens.
Oh boy, great! Now there's already accusations that the governor and some officials in Hawaii are basically handing over a lot of this land to the United Nations.
Yeah, well,
I don't know about that. There's all kinds of stuff flying around. I try to look and weed out the stuff that's unprovable. A lot of stuff that's unprovable, but the conditions for this fire were really prime.
oh yeah, it was definitely all set up and ready to go. It just needed a spark, and whether
Yeah,
that spark was natural or man-made, we may never know.
yeah. Well, I've seen stuff like a hay bale catch on fire
Oh
in
yeah,
the sunshine, so you don't even need, if you've got a composting
spontaneous combustion.
biomass that's dry on the outside and the inside is composting, it'll actually catch on fire on a dry, sunny day with a
Mhm.
little bit of wind, just like blowing on a piece of steel wool or something. Man, it'll go up. And there's so lightning could be another issue that I haven't heard hardly anybody talk about. But
The only one I've
anyway,
heard,
huh?
the only theory I've heard repeatedly was the power company leaving the grid electrified, even though there were like ridiculously high
That's what
winds.
this guy's driving underneath the power lines that are so low they hit the top of his car. The video, And I don't know if he's even in relation to Michael Herzog. It's Jonathan Herzog. The title is Lahaina Maui Fleeing the Fires Footage, Wildfire Escape. And there's the winds before the fire even hit has blown all kinds of debris across the streets, and panels blown off of buildings, and the power lines and power poles are blown over. He has fun trying to loop around and gets detoured several times to get out of there before the fire hits. But his name is Jonathan Herzog. He's on BitChute. I'll share both of those videos if anybody wants to find them. At the last hour, that guy referenced those videos, and he didn't give the exact titles, so it's hard to find them. It took me an hour to find them. But anyway, I'll let you go.
Hey, thanks, Mike.
All right, bye.
Hey, this is a good time to remind you about the Wellness Company. When you're looking for supplements, whether you're looking for a pharmacist or a doctor, and you want somebody who's actually willing to stand up for your medical freedom and give you the treatment that you want, not shove the government recommended treatment down your throat, that's the Wellness Company, twc.health. You can buy individual supplements. You can pay for individual virtual care visits, or you can become a member and get discounts on all that stuff. And or the one membership they have, One Wellness, it's almost as good as full-blown insurance. Like, it's unlimited visits with doctors and pharmacists and a whole bunch of supplements that you get to pick included with it. It's a pretty awesome thing. That's twc.health. Use code Lighthouse when you're there, and I'll save you a few dollars. Sarah in Oregon, welcome to the show, Sarah.
Hi. As yesterday, you probably know, they pulled Glenn Beck, who I haven't been a big fan of for years, from Apple Podcasts. But this is the time that I have used the platform that I was given to tell you that the importance of independent media like Red Public Broadcasting, Mojo 50, and Freely, and Red Voice Media is crucial. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. She's right. We independent broadcasters, we independent platforms, we need your help. We need you to share out our stuff. We don't get help from those little algorithms. We have to, get around those algorithms, and we need your help to do it. So share it out. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. I don't care. Tell everybody. Come listen, come watch, do what you got to do. And, our guest has joined us a couple of minutes early. So without
Attend! Welcome back in studio, retired Colonel Mike Ford, managing editor of American Free News Network.
Welcome to the show, Colonel.
How you doing today? You sound like you're on track and putting fire on the target.
Well, I was talking about Bidenomics to start with, and then Mike called in from Kentucky and wanted to clear up some stuff from the previous show host here on Republic Broadcasting, give out some website addresses. I was talking about Bidenomics and how, okay, yeah, sure, the employment rate's down and wages are quote unquote up. We'll get to that. But what else is up? The FDA is predicting that groceries are going to be up 6.3% this year.
Well, first of all, you can't use economics and Biden in the same county, much less the same sentence. But before I get into any of that, I need to talk to your listeners about something real quick. There's a real sharp guy named Pete Serafine who not only, although he's not real pretty on the air and doesn't sound all that great, he is a great writer. And he has produced a couple of really outstanding articles for American Free News Network. And two of them I would definitely recommend to the audience here. One is about jury nullification, which I think is an important power that American citizens have. They're not allowed to say those words when they're on a jury, and they're not allowed to admit that they believe in that. But when you get put on a jury and things are going down the wrong track and the government is doing the wrong thing, then it is your duty as an American to say not guilty. The other thing that our gracious host did was publish another article on American Free News Network talking about compelling state interest. And you'll hear this in a lot of Supreme Court decisions, that we can limit your rights because the state has a compelling interest. Now, I've done a Google search and I've read through the entire Constitution multiple times, and I discovered something that your host here tonight has discovered and was very good at articulating. Compelling state interest or compelling interest appears nowhere in our Constitution. So get on afnn.us and then go to the author section and look up Pete Seraphine's author cache there, and you'll see his articles there, and they are very well written. And like I said, what he really needs to be doing is running the AFNN site, because he's not really pretty enough for video.
All right. Well, with that, I think it's time for a commercial break. We'll be back in 3 minutes so I can come back and be insulted by my guest again.
You're off air.
Thank you, sir.
Just trying to help out.
I really, those were probably two of my favorite articles recently. I've gotten to the point I'm writing one a week now. I'm posting them every Friday morning at 6 a.m.
Send them to me so I can link back to you, pal.
If
we're not, this is the bar fight. If you go into one side of the bar and I go to the other and we start a fight, we'll both get killed. But if we go in back to back, we can take on all comers.
I gotta figure out which ones I've sent you, which ones I haven't.
Send them all.
Send them all
Send
again.
them all, and I'll link back.
The compelling state interest one, I really like that one. It's just a bunch of BS. We'll talk about it when we get back on air.
Okay.
But the jury nullification one, that's like a preview of my new course in the classroom there, the Liberty Lighthouse classroom. The course is the duty of a jury, and it's like 6 lessons long, hour and a half each. Yeah.
Well, send me something on that where I can put some sort of something together where I can point people toward that, so I can send them to you, because I think that's a good thing for people to hear.
What courses?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, it's the Liberty Lighthouse classroom. I'm looking for at least one more person to sign up in the Liberty Lighthouse classroom and be a lighthouse keeper. I get one more person to sign up and give me a little bit of money every month, and it'll actually cover the cost of having the Liberty Lighthouse classroom. Hosting costs and all that kind of stuff.
Well, send me the link. I might be just that person.
Well,
it's that important. We need to. It's important to give people the tools to have that discussion with their idiot sister-in-law over Thanksgiving dinner.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. I like that. We should be less than a minute until we come back on air. Ooh. See, anybody watching video, they get this. They get us just BSing. Anybody who's listening on the radio or on the podcast later, they're hearing commercials right now. So all you video viewers, this is your bonus content right here.
I guess maybe I ought to put some makeup on or something to look prettier, right?
Me with my bourbon.
Indeed.
And
this is my Klingon bourbon.
Your
bourbon glass.
All right. Well, I guess we're back. I don't hear the music.
932-6419.
Hey, welcome back. Peter Seraphine. I'm your host. And the guy next to me on the screen, if you're watching on video, that's retired Colonel Mike Ford, managing editor of American Free News Network. And the first thing we got to do before we move on is tell you to share out the show. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies, tell your in-laws, tell everybody that, this is something they need to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like that. All right, so Colonel, before we went to break and you started insulting me, you said you were talking about 2 articles I had written recently. One of them was the duty of a jury, the power of a jury, or so I forget what the title of it was, but that is a preview. That's a little snippet of a bigger project I have going on, and that is the duty of a jury online course in the Liberty Lighthouse classroom, where it's 6 lessons long, taught by Pastor David. I can't remember Whitney. That's Pastor David Whitney. He's the lecturer. I kind of introduce each lesson and wrap up each lesson and give quizzes and stuff. And he's the lecturer. There are 6 lessons, about an hour and a half a piece, and that goes into the history of where the power of the jury comes from, what a jury really can and can't do. Which you might be surprised if you've never looked into it. A jury is a pretty powerful thing. And Jefferson thought of the jury as the like final last resort, last stand against tyranny.
I agree with all that. What's important about that concept of the jury, it's the ultimate power of the people to decide. If you look at the Constitution, some people get confused about who is the highest law in the land. And they say, well, it's the Supreme Court. No, it is not. The highest law in the land is the people. Because the people, through the Congress, accepting specified functions in the Constitution, can restrict what the Supreme Court gets to decide on. So it is actually the people that decide what the law needs to be. And then that's at the highest level. At the lowest piece by piece or individual level, it's jurors deciding that, yeah, the law might say this, but the law is wrong. This guy is not guilty.
Right.
And that's very, very important. And we need to understand that, and we need to make use of that going forward. You know, there's a number of criminal cases going forward right now against a former president that have absolutely no basis in law. And what it's going to take is some tough people to say, not guilty. No matter what the law may say, not guilty, because this is just not the right thing to do.
Well, and that ties into the other article that you mentioned. The other article was a compelling state interest. Well, it's a flawed doctrine. It doesn't exist. The U.S. Constitution, for example, we'll take gun laws just because they're a hot topic. Everybody loves talking about them. Constitution says shall not be infringed. Your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, every law is an infringement.
That's correct, and it's interesting that you mentioned that.
How do we, the people, stand up to that?
Well, first of all, there's a piece of education, and what you're doing with your series there is important, because we all know in our gut what is right, and so we're going to do what we need to do because our gut tells us the things that are right and wrong. The problem is when we have to deal with our idiot sister-in-law over Thanksgiving dinner, who says we have to take care of the poor children and all those things. Right? What we need to do is have an intellectual basis to have that debate with your idiot sister-in-law. And we have to be able to get her to understand that compelling interest does not appear in the Constitution.
No.
And we have to show her the difference between the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. And those are the two greatest pieces of writing I've ever seen, because they are written two totally different ways. The First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law. So who is that a prohibition on? Congress. It's not a prohibition. It's very restrictive. Congress shall make no law, which by implication is the federal government. Okay? Which means states may make such a law, no matter what they say with this devolvement or whatever they're calling it this week.
Right. Now they go to the 14th Amendment and the incorporation doctrine. And
okay, but doctrine is not constitutional law. Okay, the 14th Amendment says everybody is protected by the Constitution. Well, you go back to the Constitution, it says Congress shall make no law.
Right.
Now, the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. Now, you'll have all the idiots out there talk about, well, what about nuclear weapons and tanks?
Yep.
Well, first of all, nukes are covered under a different deal. So that's just childish thinking. And yes, we're allowed to have tanks. You're allowed to have fully functional tanks with armor-piercing, discarding sabot rounds in them.
Mm-hmm.
Point of fact, up till and after the Civil War in these United States, the War of Northern Aggression, actually, the most powerful weapon of mass destruction was held entirely in civilian hands. That's called the armed merchant raider. Okay,
the privateers.
The privateers, and it could devastate a coastal town. So please don't tell me that the founders never intended for powerful weapons to be held in the hands of civilians. I'm sorry, but that was exactly their intent.
What they intended.
Exactly.
Well, what I'm trying to point out in that article is that the two clearest statements in the entire Constitution, the two most unambiguous, clearest things in there are Congress shall make no law and shall not be infringed. But because of court precedents and the Supreme Court and tyrants in black robes, they've come up with this whole idea that, well, if there's a compelling state interest and you narrowly tailor the law to impact as little as possible, then okay, I guess we can let you infringe on the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I've seen that written in the Constitution, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. That we can narrowly interpret it. No, it's not.
Well, but the two articles that you bring up tie together. If you understand that the Constitution says shall not be infringed, and then somehow you end up on a jury where there's a gun charge involved because somebody illegally possessed a gun or something like that, and you know in your heart that particular gun law is unconstitutional, don't convict them on that particular charge.
It is your duty to say not guilty.
Right.
It is your duty as an American.
Right. And nobody knows this. Like, they don't teach you the power of a jury. Anyway, we got way off track of where we started this evening. Mind if we go back to where we were?
Sure.
All right, so we're going back to Bidenomics. However, again, you all know this. If you are new to the show, it is a live call-in broadcast. Feel free to call in with your questions, comments, concerns, accolades, and insults. 512-248-8252. So talking about Bidenomics, this guy in the White House wants to, continue his run to the White House based on his economic record. So again, comparing 2020, the year before this guy became president, to today, the median home price in 2020 was $322,600.
Wow.
The median home price today is $416,000. So in 2 years, the median price of a home in our country has gone up 29%. Now, and if that's not bad enough, the 30-year fixed interest rate used for mortgages in 2020 was 3.1%. And in 2023 is 7.65%. So in 2 years, the interest rate to buy a house has gone up 224%. So when you take the house itself and you raise it by 29%, and then you raise the finance charges associated with buying that house by 224%, what do you think that does to your monthly payment there, Colonel?
Well, and then add some other stuff on there. Because one of the things that I did, starting with the Obama administration, is monitor the price of gasoline. Mm-hmm. And the way you do that is you monitor it at the same 1, 2, or 3 stations over time. And one of the things that I did was start monitoring when Obama says, well, you can't drill your way to, you can't get below $2 a gallon. Well, guess what? Under Biden, it was above $2 a gallon. Under Donald Trump, at the same two gas stations that I watched in this area of the great state of Alabama, Roll Tide, Ricky Bobby, it was $1.89.
Yep.
That was the average. $1.89. That was in fact, I never heard anyone volunteer to apologize to Sarah Palin or Michelle Bachmann for saying that it was possible to get sub $2 gas, and they all badmouthed them and said they were idiots and it would never happen. But it did. And it stayed that way throughout the duration of the Trump presidency. And
well,
now,
Obama also said that you'd have to have a magic wand to get a gross domestic product above 4%.
well, now he was right, but the magic wand is called, hold on, this is a big secret, don't tell anybody, the free market.
How dare you say that on my show?
Don't tell anybody.
All right, so you were talking about gas prices. So again, I'm doing this stuff. I have the gas prices from inauguration day for Mr. Biden and today. The national average from AAA for both those days. But I don't want to leave the housing thing yet.
Well, no, hold on, because there's more.
Mm-hmm.
So you're some guy who's working himself silly. He's got a day job where he's getting whatever the average wage is for a semi-skilled profession, but he decides to go out and do something else in order to bring in some money because he loves his wife, he adores his kids, and he wants to get them out of an apartment and into a house in a backyard with a swing set so he can play with his kids. So he decides to drive for Uber or commute to some other place or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have done by these gas prices, okay, is double his commute cost.
And
that's on top of what it takes to get into the house anyway. So he's getting smacked twice just in that regard by what Joe Biden has personally done. Because let's not forget this. These gas prices are a result of Joe Biden's personal decisions on not drilling,
closing pipelines,
and all these other things. So this is
importing
not a
dirty
result
oil
of, this ain't a result of legislation. He can't blame the 535 idiots that live in that building down the street that he can't see because of the jog that Andy Jackson put in Pennsylvania Avenue.
You bring up, okay, the guy who's driving for Uber or Lyft or whatever for a second job to help his wife out, to help out his family and make his life better. Joe Biden also now taxes that money a lot more than before.
Of course he did, because he wants to make them get unionized, which will take more of their money from them.
It used to be that you could make, I don't remember the exact number, like $7,000 or something like that before you had to start making tax payments on it. They dropped that to $600.
I drove for Uber for a year just because, well, my claim is I want to get out of the house a little bit and do something different. Her Majesty says she wanted me out of the house. Okay, whatever. You pick your story. But I drove for Uber. I will tell you right now, for somebody that wants to pick up a decent amount of side money and has a decent work ethic, you can make some decent coins. Now, if you want to show up, wearing, ugly shorts, flip-flops, and look ugly like me, yeah, you might not get so much money. But if you want to show up, professionally, your vehicle clean and all that, you can make some decent money, unless you live in California where they want to unionize you and do all kinds of other things and actually destroy the individual business owner model. Mm-hmm. So once again, Democrats take something that's really good and hurt everybody involved. The guy that's trying to deliver the service and the customer that would like to receive it.
Yep. All right, going back to the home price. Home prices are up 29%. Interest rates are up 224%. If you take that, 2020 price house of $322,600 and you do a 3.1% mortgage and you do it on the whole thing, no down payment at all, 3.1% on $322,000, your monthly mortgage payment is $1,377.55. That would be the finance cost of a median home in 2020. So now today, median price house is $416,000 at 7.65% interest. You do the same thing, 30 years at 7.65%. Your mortgage payment is now $2,951.58 a month.
And Joe Biden has made it harder for you to get that $2,000.
Yep.
So he's killing you two ways.
Your mortgage payment went up 214% on the median house in this country.
And your ability to get the money went down what percent?
Let's get there. I haven't quite got there yet. That's on here too. So you were talking about gas just a second ago. Before we get to gas, we've been talking about houses here, and everybody wants to own a house, and now is not the time to do that. But when you do get your house, you're going to want a firearm. And when you own a firearm, you need right to bear insurance. You need a concealed carry insurance if you're going to own a firearm. And right to bear is the most affordable insurance on the market. And if you use code Lighthouse when you visit protectwithbear.com, I'll get you 10% off. Plans start at $11 a month. You will get locked in at $11 a month. That will never increase. And yes, they are probably going to have to increase their rates here pretty soon because of the Biden economy. But you will be locked in at $11 a month. Save 10% off of that with code Lighthouse and at protectwithbear.com. All right, gas. You mentioned gas. You know what gas price, the national average regular price per gallon on January 20th, 2021 was? You don't know?
Nope. I know what it is. I know what it is down at this local station I looked at today. $3.49.
$2.39 was the national average on Inauguration Day.
Okay.
And that was after already going up. It was $1.86 on Election Day. And then as soon as Biden got elected, everybody started, sphincters tightening and prices started going up immediately. By Inauguration Day, it was up to $2.39. Today, the national average price, according to AAA, for a gallon of gas is $3.87. It's $1.48 higher. Now, it is still down from the $5 high, and that's what Biden will claim as his victory. Well, we're down almost $2 whole from the high last year. I'm like, yeah, but you're still $1.48 higher than when you became president.
There's a saying that goes along with that. You don't get to claim credit for putting out a fire that you set.
You're right. I was hoping that was where you were going with that. Never know with you.
Great minds think like mine, by the way, just so you know.
So these were just some numbers I wanted to talk about in regards to Bidenomics. Natural gas is up 44%. FDA is predicting groceries to go up another 6.3%. Mortgage payments are up 214%. Mortgage interest is up 224%. Median home price is up 29%. And a gallon of gas is up $1.48. Oh, and the American populace has $1 trillion in credit card debt for the first time. But wages went up too, right? Well, technically, yes. The average wage did go up between 2020 and right now it went up 4.5%. Woohoo! My paycheck went up by 4.5%. Now maybe I can go buy that house that went up by 29%.
Or pay for a tank of gas that went up by however much.
Right. Or go buy that gallon of gas that went up $1.48.
Have you noticed that the inflation rate doesn't consider energy or food?
Yep. They don't consider energy or food because they're both very volatile. Well, duh. That's exactly why they should be considered. Those are the things that eat away at our wallets more than anything else.
If I was a detective, I'd call that a clue.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting tired of picking on Biden about Bidenomics. What do you want to talk about here, Colonel?
Well, A couple of things I'd like to talk about is what's not being talked about. A week or so ago, we were talking about child trafficking, and we were talking about the fact that, oh my goodness, the nominees for certain general officer positions haven't been confirmed by the Senate. And we were talking about a bunch of other things, and all of a sudden those have disappeared. Why aren't we talking about child trafficking? Could it be that it's a serious issue and it's an issue that's being enabled by Democrats? Why aren't we talking about Senator Tommy Tuberville of the great state of Alabama, Ricky Bobby, Roll Tide, when he is doing his constitutional duty to discipline the military? If you look in the Constitution, it says the Congress shall have the power to discipline the Army and the Navy. Okay.
Make the
And what
rules.
he has done is he has withheld Senate confirmation of flag officers and what they call senior executive service, which are civilian equivalent of generals, because
let's be
the
fair to the
Secretary of the
senator.
Defense has decided to disobey U.S. law.
Let's be fair to the senator. He is not outright denying doing it. He will only do it one at a time. He is,
and he's doing it correctly, because from my foxhole, all flag officer promotions should be handled individual. General officers are a cut above.
All right. And for those that are not military, the flag officer is was it 07 and above?
Yes, 07 and above, generals and admirals. For the Army, it's brigadier general, major general, lieutenant general, which is kind of weird. Those are that way. And then general. And for the Navy, it's rear admiral lower half, rear admiral upper half, vice admiral, and then admiral. But basically, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4-star flag officers. Okay. And he is withholding those promotions, and he's withholding those confirmation of those positions because the Secretary of Defense is violating the law. The law clearly says that the U.S. federal government will not fund abortions. Okay, it's in statute. Now, if you want to fight the statute, go fight it. Fight it in court, fight it in the Congress. But the bottom line is military officers and everybody involved in the military must obey the law. If I, as a commander, when I was a brigade commander, violated such a law, my sorry butt would be underneath Fort Leavenworth. It wouldn't be in Fort Leavenworth. It would be underneath Fort Leavenworth.
And that law's been around for a very long time, which is why all of the money, I said, that law's been around for a very long time. That's not a new thing.
It has.
That's why all of the money that went to Planned Parenthood was supposed to be segregated off and used for other stuff and not for abortions, even though money is fungible and ridiculous.
That is correct. And these people that are saying Tuberville is playing politics, wrong. The one that is playing politics is the Secretary of Defense. And he should know better because he is a retired flag officer. Okay. And I will tell you right now, I have absolutely zero. I have less than zero respect for that man. You know, when I was coming up, general officers, I had almost filial respect for, you know, because there was something magic that happened between colonel, which I topped out at as a flag officer. You had to be you had to be smarter for one thing. And then there was something magic that happened. I'll tell you right now, there is no magic in this guy. He is an evil man for promoting this stuff, and he needs to go.
So the law's been around for a long time that the federal government cannot fund abortions.
That's
not
correct.
only is the Department of Defense funding abortions, but now, if you happen to be in one of the states that's restricting abortions, the federal government is giving you time off of work, paid time off, and paying for your travel.
That's called funding abortions, and it's illegal. And if I was a commander and did this type of thing, I would be put underneath Fort Leavenworth. He needs to be, I will tell you right now, the way the law reads and the way military regulations read, he needs to be charged. And any commander that signs a TDY order or travel order sending a female to get an abortion somewhere, he needs to be tried by UCMJ. Okay, that's what the law reads. That's the way it works. And any commander that does this needs to be tried. And what we need to have happen is a few honest Army officers, military officers who are in command to start prosecuting commanders that send females off to get an abortion and use Army military funds to do it. Okay, if they don't do it, they are culpable and they should be prosecuted under the UCMJ.
And
it's that simple.
So what Senator Tuberville, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Senator Tuberville is doing is he's refusing to allow the normal process, which is where a slate of, a list of, hey, we want to promote all of these people is presented to the Senate, and the Senate
or confirm. And in some cases, it doesn't involve a promotion. Like one of the things, if you'll see on my personal website, every couple of days, I throw out a question. What major requirement was failed because the commandant of the Marine Corps, the acting commandant, was not confirmed in his position? Well, he's already a 4-star general anyway. So there's absolutely nothing he can't do except a couple little minor things that don't involve readiness. So he's the acting commandant. He's already a 4-star general. His pay will not go up when he becomes the confirmed commandant of the Marine Corps. So the bottom line is he can do pretty much anything he needs to do as the acting. And the other part of this is in the military, all the deputies, the number 2s, are supposed to be able to take over the boss's position if the bosses can't do it.
Right.
So if you have a number 2, you put him in there and he does the boss's position, and sooner or later he'll get promoted. That's just the way it is. And the Secretary of Defense is lying through his teeth, saying that this is affecting readiness. The Secretary of the Army, who doesn't belong in that job anyway, because she is not able to be part of a bayonet fight, is lying through her teeth.
So Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Army are both lying. Good to know. It's break time. We're sitting here with Colonel Ford from American Free News Network. We'll be back in 3 minutes. All right. So I got a text message here that says, tell the listeners that they should put pressure on the representatives to address child trafficking by calling the switchboard at the Capitol switchboard. And according to this, it's SOBUSOB. Is that can't be right? that would be hilarious if it is. Well, you can say whatever you want now. We're off air.
I'm sorry. I'm a little understated tonight.
That's right. Yeah. You're being rather quiet, Mike. You should.
I'm sorry. I'll try to be. I'll try to be more vociferous in the next segment.
I need air conditioning. Woo. Man, my studio gets hot.
We have been so. When I say we, the corporate we want to check so many diversity blocks that we don't put people in position. The person that I want as the Secretary of the Army understands in his gut what it means to be involved in a bayonet fight in Fallujah. And if you're not military, what I would like is for you to look at the stairwell scene in Saving Private Ryan, where the paratrooper and the German soldier are fighting over possession of a bayonet, and you watch that German soldier slowly killing. Okay? That's what warfare is about. Okay? Is killing.
Yeah, military's there to break stuff and kill people.
Yep. Or credibly threaten to do so on behalf of the National Command Authority. Yeah.
Well, what I was hoping to get into next is the real crime is nonsensical inclusionary crap that the military seems to be pushing now.
Go ahead. You lead into it. I can dance to that one. How much time we got before we go live?
You can go if you want to run.
I need to.
All right.
You want? Go to naturalearthmedicine.com. That's naturalearthmedicine.com.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
The American dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are on cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back.
Hey, we do. Welcome back. It is the top of the second hour of National Intel Report live on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio, Patriot Nation Radio Network, and any place else you might be watching or listening to the show. I got a text message during the break that said, tell the listeners that they should put pressure on their representatives to address the child trafficking issue by calling SOBUSOB, the Capitol Switchboard. And it says, yes, that number works, and it's super easy to remember. I don't know that number works. This person says it does. SOBUSOB. That's funny. However, I do know that the House of Representatives switchboard is 202-224-3121. And I think we should all call them a lot more frequently than we do now. We need to be more civically engaged. We need to tell our representatives, yeah, you can say they're not going to listen. They don't, but every call gets logged. And when we get enough people all calling with the same message, like stop child trafficking or stop woke nonsense in the military or whatever the case may be, then eventually they have to listen, right? Theoretically, hopefully. I don't know. Call your representative. 202-224-3121 is the switchboard at the U.S. House of Representatives. Do that. We got Colonel Mike Ford with us.
Attend hut. Welcome back in studio, retired Colonel Mike Ford, managing editor of American Free News Network.
All right, Colonel, before we went to break, you were talking about not having any respect for the, was it the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of the Army? And my head went to I don't have a whole lot of respect for any of the idiots in the DOJ that are coming up with all the woke nonsense that they're shoving down the military's throats. Now, in my first book, Progress, really? I said in here that I didn't care if the guy next to me in the Navy was identified as a purple anteater, as long as he did his job and had my back. And I think that holds true for just about anybody in the military. Be whatever you want to be. I don't care. Do your job and have my back. But you can't do your job when they're lowering standards because, what was it? G.I. Jane. You remember the movie G.I. Jane, right? Demi Moore wanted to be a SEAL. And at first they were like, well, you're good to pass. You're good. And she refused, and she had to meet all the men, she forced herself to meet the men's standards. That's the way I feel it should be. The standard is the standard. You don't lower the standard because you want to let a woman do the job. If the woman can meet the standard, then great. And if she can't, then sorry, we'll find something else for you to do. That's what the military's all about. They've got a job for everybody. This nonsense about the Navy put out a video about pronouns. Did you see that?
I did not.
Oh, I'm gonna have to find that. So let you just talk for a minute while I look that up. But the Navy put out a video about pronouns. You know what the pronouns were when I was in the Navy?
Sir,
ma'am, officer. Yeah. So what? Anyway, you talk. What do you think about all of that nonsense?
If you're talking about first responder type things in the U.S., anybody that can meet the standard should be able to play in that game. Now, the problem is with first responders in the U.S., what they have done is lowered the standards because of a thing they call disparate impact. And what that means is they lowered the physical standards so they had, scare quotes here, enough females. Well, what happens is they have females, a bunch of them meet the lowered standards. They come in at entry level. A bunch of them end up leaving, but a few of them survive by being carried by their male counterparts, so they can make sergeant and lieutenant. And then all of a sudden, all the physical requirements disappear, and then you see a disparate amount of females actually as police chiefs and sheriffs now. Okay. Although they had never been able to actually meet the real standards. In the military, we can survive with that stateside. In the military, there's another dynamic that takes place. Okay. If you ever watch or look in a locker room, okay, combat arms is like a locker room. It's males on testosterone, and what enables them to survive and deal with fear in combat is not wanting to let down their male comrades. Okay, I will tell you right now, having had more than a few AK-47 rounds go whipping by my head, the only thing that kept me from peeing my pants and cowering under under a Humvee when we got ambushed was that there were men out there that would think less of me if I did. So I stood out there and did what I had to do to get our convoy out of the ambush, stood out there directing traffic or whatever, although I wanted to pee my pants, okay? And there's an old saying out there that says, you know, bravery is being the only one around you that knows you're scared shitless, okay? Right. Okay, but that's a male thing, okay? Women deal with these things emotionally differently, okay? And the minute you put a woman, a female, into a traditionally male environment, you totally change the dynamic and you degrade the performance of the men. Okay, that's been proven time and again. We can say, oh, well, that's not fair, and we can train the men or whatever, but why are you going to waste resources and time to train the men to act unnaturally? A male's dynamic is to protect women and children and go off and fight wars. Women are there to take care of children while the men are off killing people. That's the way it works. And if you if you don't want to buy that, well, I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
I was on one of the very first combat-ready U.S. naval vessels to have women on board. We were one.
Well, then inherently it wasn't combat ready.
Well, let me get there. It was a combat-ready vessel, and we were chosen to be one of the test sites to have women on board. And they brought on one female officer and I don't know, 3 or 4 female enlisted. I don't remember exactly. But I do remember that over half of them were sent to the shore duty pregnant within the first year they were on the ship. They were no longer combat ready.
Oh, yeah.
And it was painfully clear that every man on the ship did everything they could to impress these 4 women, because there were
Well, yes,
4 women.
that's natural.
Yeah.
Here's the other part of that. How many of those women? Okay, now I'm not a Navy guy. I'm a grunt. You know, I walk to work. How many of those women can perform all the damage control functions, which, from what I understand, involves picking up big old 6x6s or whatever and shoving them in there to keep, you know, the water from coming in. Whatever it is you Navy guys do, I don't know, to keep the boat from sinking.
You know, there's a lot of firefighting in the Navy, believe it or not.
Well, yeah, okay, which involves hauling heavy hoses filled with water and, you know, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yep. Wearing OBAs and fire resistant.
Yep.
Anyway, I found that video. It's processing and uploading, and we'll play it in right after this phone call. Reb in Colorado, line 1. Welcome to the show. Reb in Colorado, going once. All right, I can't hear Reb. The person who texted me the number SOB, it said they just called it. It's 877 SOB USOB to reach the Capitol switchboard. That's awesome. 877 SOB USOB.
Okay, I got to write that down.
All right, and here is the Navy's video about proper pronoun usage.
Hi, my name is Johnny and I use he, him pronouns.
Hi, and I'm Kanchi and I use she, her pronouns.
And we're here to talk about pronouns.
What is a pronoun? A pronoun is how we identify ourselves apart from our name, and it's also how people refer to us in conversations.
Using the right pronouns is a really simple way to affirm someone's identity. It is a signal of acceptance and respect.
If it's a signal of acceptance and respect, how do we go about creating a safe space for everybody?
That's a good question. A really good way to do that is to use inclusive language. Instead of saying something like, hey guys, you can say, hey everyone, or hey team.
Yeah, and now that you say that, another way that we could show that we're allies and that we accept everybody is to maybe include our pronouns in our emails, or like we just did, introduce ourselves using our pronouns.
But what would I do if I misgender someone?
I think the first thing to recognize is that it's not the end of the world. You correct yourself and move on, or you accept the correction and move on. The most important thing I can tell you is do not put the burden of making you feel good about your mistake on the person that you just misgendered.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, and another tip for you to remember their pronoun next time, it's in your mind. Kind of go through a progression of 3 good things about the person using their pronoun. So let's say the person chooses to use they, then you will in your mind go, they have a nice shirt, they have a nice smile, they are really smart. So that kind of sticks in your brain.
That is so helpful. I want to know, what would I do if I want to know someone's gender identity or pronouns?
The most important thing is do not pressure anybody into giving you their pronouns. Some people may be going through the process of discovery and they are not ready yet to tell you what their pronouns are, and that's okay.
So I should just lead with my pronouns and they may follow or not, and if they don't, then I can just continue to use gender neutral language.
Yes, exactly. Just to share something with you that happened the other day at a cookout I was at, we were talking about pronouns and somebody was disagreeing with how different people see themselves as different pronouns, and the argument was, if you look like a female, then it's she, her, because that's what's normal, and if you make me call you something else, then you're infringing on my rights. And I was really taken aback by the comment, and I really wasn't sure how to respond, and the only thing I could really think quickly to say was, it's not about you at all, and it's mostly and ultimately about respect.
It is about respect. That's an important point to make, and I think you did the right thing. I think it's important to keep it short and simple. What I would have said to help them understand better is to talk about mispronouncing names. For example, my name is Johnny, spelled Jony, and it's normal for someone to pronounce my name like Joni. But if I were to tell you over and over again, my name is Johnny, and you insist on mispronouncing my name, I would feel disrespected by you. Some names are very difficult to pronounce, but do you know what is very easy to pronounce? She, he, they.
Oh, okay. So that was the most ghetto version I've ever seen of a Navy training video, and my God, the Navy training videos were bad to begin with. But that was so dated and everything. You said this is not about respect, and it respect doesn't involve affirming a mental disorder, and I agree with that. But my thing about it was the military is nobody knew my first name when I was on a ship. It was Petty Officer. It was Riggle back then. I changed my name. Long story, anyway. But it was Petty Officer Riggle or MS3 Riggle or just MS3. There was no he, him, her. It's just not used. It's rank, last name.
It's first of all, do me a favor, have one of your smart guys email me that video. I'm gonna have some well thought out verbiage to deal with that. You'll see it. Here's a question that I've asked a number of flag officers and SESs, and for those of you artists who don't know what that is, SESs are the civilian equivalent of general officers, 1-star, 2-star, or whatever. I've asked them multiple times, and not one has been able to tell me how any of this increases our ability, military ability to, what's the word?
Kill people and break
cost effectiveness, combat effectiveness, lethality, deterrence, recruiting, or any other metric by which we assess our ability to kill people and break things, or credibly threaten to do so at the behest of our National Command Authority. Let's look at whoever is China's military guru over there, who is looking at the United States and going, what can they do? Or that Wiener Putin looking at us and saying, what can they do? Or the current dictator over in Korea saying, what can they possibly do? And what are they willing to do? So they look at us and they see a Secretary of Defense that says, my most important priority is to get into a food fight with a man who can confirm my choices as flag officers because he disagrees with me about female plumbing. Think about that, because that's what's going on here. We have a bunch of people that are deciding to side with people who are disordered. If you wake up in the morning and you believe that your sex, and it's sex, it's not gender. Gender is social studies and it's language studies, but it's not biological. The biological term is sex. And in the human species, sex is one of two things, male, female. If there's other stuff going on there, that means you have a disorder. There's something wrong with you. Okay? So if our Secretary of Defense is involved in deciding female plumbing, then you know what? I think my chances are pretty good to invade Taiwan. I think my chances are pretty good to come across the border and invade South Korea.
Yeah. It's showing weakness. It's showing the priorities are messed up. And it's not just the military. The national priorities of everything and everyone are messed up. I said a long time ago that we we we've had it too good for too long in this country. We've been too affluent and too comfortable, and well, now we're complaining about made up problems. We're creating problems just to have something to complain about, and that doesn't happen in third world nations. That doesn't happen when people are hungry or when there's a war going on. It doesn't happen when there's something significant of profound importance in our lives. This gender affirming pronoun nonsense only exists because we have been so comfortable for so long.
Oh yeah, it's called what they call a first world problem.
Right.
They're not talking to me like I want to be talked to. Well, you know what? Go over to some places like Africa, which is a failed continent, and have to work on feeding yourself and your progeny. Now you have a problem.
Yeah, I get it. I don't understand how any of this ever got into the military. Clearly it has. And I don't understand why it's been allowed to stay. Like,
Well, I understand that. What you have to look at is what they call the long march for the through the institutions. The left, for the longest time, has wanted to destroy the pillars that hold up American society. Those pillars are things like the church, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the military, all these things that people go to get morally centered. And when they can get underneath those and destroy them, then that's what happens. I'm watching it happen in the church that I used to attend. The United Methodist Church has been destroyed by people that believe that it's absolutely normal to copulate with the same sex. Well, I'm sorry, the Bible says no. So, we've had to leave that church and form our own. Same with the Boy Scouts. It's okay for, scoutmasters to
oh, I don't know. The colonel just went to a blank screen. I don't know what happened. So we'll go to a phone call. Don't forget, this is a live call on 2512-248-8252. Laura in Michigan on line 1. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Well, I really wanted to talk to the general.
Oh, he's back. Colonel.
Is he back?
Yep, he's back.
I'm here.
Okay. When you referred to Putin, what did you say? Did you say about him? You referred to Putin. You said something.
You were going through the dictator in Korea and whatever, and you said something about Putin. I don't remember, but you used some derogatory term for him.
I don't remember talking about Putin. I remember talking about Kim.
Yeah, you mentioned Putin, and you used a derogatory term, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay. So here's my point. Why did you use the derogatory term against Putin?
Well, if I did, because Putin is a harsh dictator, and he's doing some pretty ugly stuff. In fact, I had an article about what he's doing and how it's pretty close to what was going on in 1917 when Tsar Nicholas got deposed. You can see that on AFNN.
Do you know that Putin has rebuilt thousands of churches? He's Russian Orthodox.
He's still a
people love him. I think you're listening to CNN.
No, ma'am. I don't listen to CNN because I think they're evil. I'm just looking at what is going on right now with the war in Ukraine. Okay.
Well, we shouldn't have had a war. It was 2014 when Victoria Nuland took $5 billion of our dollars and overthrew the duly elected Russian president of the Ukraine, and left it, and opened it up for all the cabals to go in there and steal all the real resources and the banks and everything else out of the Ukraine.
I don't understand why we're there at all, but
Ma'am,
that's me.
Ma'am, I respect what you're saying. What I would ask you to do, if you have the time, is to go to AFNN, look at my article cache, Mike Ford, F-O-R-D, like the truck, and look at the article that I labeled, It's Looking Like 1917 in Russia. Go ahead and have a look at that, and then come back the next time, and let's have a chat. Okay? I'm being very respectful with you, ma'am, but
1917 is when the Bolsheviks took over. And they killed the Tsar and his family.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. I would ask you to go ahead and read my article about that, and then let's come back and have a talk. I'm respectfully asking this.
And the Colonel is back what is this? The third Thursday of every month. So he'll be back again on September 21st.
I respectfully say he needs to look into Putin a little bit more and the people. He went to liberate the Ukrainian people.
He might want to liberate the Ukrainian people, but he's still a commie bastard. Anyway, thanks for the call, Laura. It is break time. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Reb, hold on if you're still there. I'll get you on the other side of the break.
Homeowners, are you
All right. You got to go?
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
So we got like 30 minutes more and we can punch out, right?
Yep.
I got to tell you, this is the best event yet.
See what happens when you stick around.
Well, yeah, but you're not sending me, you haven't sent me a bottle of bourbon or nothing, so I don't know.
Well, you haven't sent me one either.
Well, I don't like you that much, and you're not very pretty. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't know why I do the video stuff. I really don't. I know I'm not.
Actually, let's chat sometime soon, because I think I have some ideas on that.
All right.
I want to see you succeed.
I was going to say anything that's going to help me make money.
I want to see you succeed. Seriously.
Well, the Liberty Lighthouse classroom has been the most successful thing I've done so far. I came on the show and said I was thinking about it, and had 3 people call in and said, "Yeah, do it." So I started it, and I came back on the show and announced that I had started it, and had 3 people immediately sign up to help subscribe, and pay for it. I need 1 more to subscribe and help pay for it.
Well, go ahead, send me the link, because I want to go ahead and help you fund that. So send me a link so I can subscribe. But I want you to go ahead and build that out, because I think it's important.
Well, I'm starting with the classes from Institute on the Constitution.
Okay.
But I suspect that eventually I will be making my own. I already sent you the Navy training video link.
Okay, good. Here's what's important. It's really important that people like this young lady we just talked to, they're able to have a conversation with their dipshit sister-in-law over Thanksgiving dinner and say, look, you're wrong here, 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 and here, and here's why. Boom, boom, boom. And that's what your classes are going to do.
The Ukrainian thing to me is just, why are we there at all? It's been a civil. I mean, Ukraine has gone back and forth between being independent and being part of Russia over and over again for the last 1,000 years.
Coming back, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, I'm here.
Hey, welcome back. Final segment of tonight's show. And before we get too far along, I want to get to Reb in Colorado on line 1. Welcome to the show, Reb.
This is the U.S. Pentagon First Team, Bubba Scout Reb reporting for the rest of the team. And I was wondering if this Colonel heard about Michael Yan, United States Army Special Operations Command, in a Green Beret 25 years. He contacts us, along with Secretary of the Army's office. They're running us over with the United Nations right now. He was just in McAllen, heads back to El Paso, and he goes up and back around the world to the Darien Gap, and the UN just overrun us. One of the I couldn't get on the radio. They wouldn't move you on because you don't want to hear the facts. They're interested in the truth, not the facts. They're going to build 30 square miles in Liberty, Texas, a training area for Haitians, 250,000 of them. They're going to dump them here. They're going to give them guns and badges. He was freaking out, this Michael Yan. Him and this other one, I forgot his name. He's Navy SEAL. But they report on this, and we got direct. It's like directly from them. They told us it's coming to Liberty, Texas. People in Texas deserve it. They can go to hell for all I care. But we don't want this in America. I mean, I'm from one part of Texas, Bubba's from another. We're refugees in our own country, stuck here in Soviet Colorado. We're not going to take this crap. We're at the top of the government. JAG complaint, Joint Chiefs, U.S. Public Law 109-364, Section 1076, United States Army War College War Plan for the use of force on the North American continent. We start here. We're going to punch a hole into the Region 8 headquarters, Lakewood, Colorado. And we're bringing the IRS to take all their dope money. And we're not going to stop here. That's our plan. It's all approved. I've got outstanding from the command staff, Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. I guess this Colonel General, he's heard of this before. And they're 717-245-3232. That's the command center. Mike talked to the National Command Center. They're calling it chops when they answer the phone. General Milley's got our statement. Got it. He sent his CID command here to Lakewood, Colorado, from both residences. There's 3 of us. And this is all official. I want to know if he's heard anything, because the whole Pentagon knows about Bubba, Scout, Reb. They put their 3 names into call signs. So why aren't we getting attention and doing our job that we signed for? It's the JAG and the Joint Chiefs and the federal agents in charge to tell 911 lowlives stay the hell away from us. Anti-terror and OSI counterintelligence Northcom got badge and everything. The federal agents in charge. This is a national emergency. So everybody, the white boy's no good. You can't use the law, white boy. That's what you're telling me. It's real law. And we want to punch all. No, they're not going to set up in Liberty, Texas, and then ban them out around America, because they're crazy. And he explained they were deporting these Haitians. You know how they bring Haitians here. They bring everybody. And they're crazy. Some pilots said they flew them back on a charter airline. They ripped the seats off the floor and broke the little interior plastic windows. They're having a ride because they were being deported. So the UN rounds them up again. They're going to stick them on 30 square miles. We know that part of Texas, the Crockett National Park, up there, Liberty. I talked to the Secretary of the Army to get a hold of these people and send us Delta Force. We'll start here and wish they were dead. No, we're not going to take this. No. And we're top of the chain of command now. And we're doing. So we got around the Justice Department, and everybody listening in, you call that National Command Center, and you don't ask. You say, hey, those deadbeats, Bubba Scout Reb, they ain't doing nothing. They're signed up. It's all covered. You're paid for it. And you tell it 703-697-9121. Don't take no for an answer. If you're a, what do they call you?
A 10 hut.
Sorry about that.
Well, that's good that you're playing the bugle, because we need somebody to round up troops and get this done.
Another way you can do that.
Headquarters. Huh?
Another way you can do that, another way to round up troops and get things done is behind your county
That's what
sheriff.
the law says. That's what the law says.
Another way is to line up behind your county sheriff. Your county sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of his county. He has the power of posse comitatus, which means that he can call a posse of every able-bodied man in his county. So if your county sheriff is a constitutionalist and believes in liberty and justice, he might have to do that someday. So make sure that your sheriff has your number.
We're witnesses against those bastards. I don't care what costume they're wearing. They're covering up for these murderers. You're in a fog if you think that the UN ain't running your local Sharia, or we call them the government intruder, no intelligence, or the whole 911 system. You
Listen, Rev.
Get in our way.
Listen, Rev. You're not going to come on here and make a comment saying that the UN is running every county sheriff and every elected office in every place everywhere, because you know what? I carry a badge. I am an elected constable, and I do this show to wake people up. I carry my badge everywhere I go, and I'm not going to enforce some BS law that I don't think is constitutional. So don't make broad statements like that unless you're willing to come to my face and make them to me.
I can't. We're in Colorado. You're in Texas. We're not knocking people who want the law. Where's the law? It's a JAG complaint at the Joint Chiefs. Why is this so hard to understand?
No, but
every member of the Pentagon understands. They don't play games. We were a monster created by the United States Defense Intelligence Agency.
But you're missing my point. You're missing my point that your county sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of your county, and therefore has the power and the authority to kick out the FBI or the IRS or the ATF or whoever else comes into their county. And they also have the power to bring every able-bodied man in that county to arms. So if there's anybody in this country that can stand up against the federal government or the UN or whoever, it's a coalition of like-minded sheriffs.
Okay, you're right. Let them get in the way. We're okay with that. Tell the military when we roll in here, you're not supposed to show up. Go for it. You like that idea. Because we're not going to take crap from punks who tried to murder us under their guise of law. When you use a badge.
That's enough. I don't even know where you're going anymore. Have a great night. Thanks for calling. And if you're ever willing to actually have a conversation back and forth, two ways, listen to each other, then feel free to call back again. But let's talk about, my own website, liberty-lighthouse.com. I started out the show telling you I'm doing a lot more work lately. So help me out. Go to liberty-lighthouse.com. You can go to the shop, and in the shop, you can buy some cool merchandise, like my favorite new t-shirt that says "Make the Constitution Matter Again." Or go to the classroom and enroll in a course and learn about that power of posse comitatus in your local sheriff that I just mentioned. Or learn about the biblical foundations of our government. That's liberty-lighthouse.com. And Classroom is my newest project. Or go to the blog and read some of those new articles. And Colonel Ford, you want to talk about one of those articles?
Yeah, I just want to let your viewership know that they need to come on afnn.us and look at your article cache, because you've got some really good stuff there. And despite how not very pretty you look on this platform, you actually do write very well. So thanks for having me on. You're a good man.
Well, thank you very much, Colonel. Visit the Colonel, support his works at afn.us. That's American Free News Network.us. And we got somebody over here in the video room in Twitch says, you guys should stop giving these lunatics airtime. And I lost it. Where'd it go? Stop giving these lunatics airtime. It's why we have Trumpers trying to kill judges and making death threats to the president. Okay. Well, I probably did let that go on a little longer than I should. But I was waiting for the point. I was waiting for the, where's it going to get wrapped up at the end? And that just never seemed to come. Anyway, let's see here. I lost my train of thought where I was going. The Colonel left me, and I'm all by myself. And I'm out of notes. I was talking about Bidenomics and all the debt and all that other kind of stuff. Where's the curiosity of our press? Talked about that last week, and how the press doesn't want to investigate things that might look suspicious anymore. And I think it's more telling the stories that the press doesn't cover says more about a network than how much coverage they give the stories that they do cover. If that makes any sense. We got the Biden laptop thing is the most obvious example where they were like, oh no, it's Russian information, just disinformation or whatever. Well, it had already been verified by the time the New York Post put it out. And I'm pretty sure at least one or two other networks probably knew that, but they chose not to talk about it. And it happens all the time. We have stories that come out and one place will talk about it when nobody else will. Kind of like the Bidenomics that I'm just talking, the president's going around telling about all these things. And he just outright said that he cut $1.7 trillion out of the debt, which is a lie. The national debt has gone up $4 trillion since President Biden's been president. So he lied. But nobody's going to call him on it. Nobody dares speak out and say that right in front of him. Why is that? If you've got an idea that I don't have, phone line is open, 512-248-8252. We've got, got 15, 20 minutes left, and I don't have anything to talk about. I didn't prepare well enough. I didn't bring enough notes and enough study and things to do a whole show tonight, apparently. One of the things I did want to talk about here soon was the definition of the word misdemeanors. I'm starting to think that impeachment is something that should happen far more often than it does today. And well, impeachment for the president says, for high crimes and misdemeanors. And I think it's important to know what, definitions of words. So if you open up Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, which I highly recommend everybody who has any intention of ever studying the Constitution, get a copy of Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary. There's a free app for your phone or tablet that is an electronic version that's free, because the printed version is actually pretty pricey. So a misdemeanor in Noah's 1828 dictionary is, in law, an offense of a less atrocious nature than a crime. Crimes and misdemeanors are mere synonyms in terms, but in common usage, the word crime is made to denote offenses of a deeper and more atrocious dye, while small faults and omissions of less consequence are compromised under the gentler name of misdemeanor. So in the Constitution, where it says that the president can only be tried for high crimes and misdemeanors, treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. So that's a pretty broad umbrella, actually. Up until recently, we've all been made to believe that you can only impeach a president for like big, huge felony type offenses. But that's not what the Constitution says. It says other high crimes or misdemeanors. Now, I'm not saying that you impeach a president for walking across the street, jaywalking or anything like that. But when the pile of misdemeanors starts to pile up, I don't know, maybe we should. Other things to look at, definitions in studying the Bible or the Constitution and Noah Webster's dictionary. Things that just really stuck in my head lately. That was one of them. Another one is the fact that we all know that it doesn't say life tenure in the Constitution for judges, right? It says judges shall hold their office for good behavior. So they can be impeached too. So where's the good behavior come in? Well, in my opinion, that's when they stop applying the Constitution as a judge, when they start legislating from the bench, when they start using their own feelings and emotions rather than the Constitution. We can impeach them, and we should. And not just Supreme Court justices, all federal judges, all judges anywhere, all offices anywhere. We need to impeach people more often. We all know, there's the old joke, how do you tell a politician's lying? Well, their lips are moving. Well, then why do we keep electing politicians? That's on us. But we can fix it. We can fix it by having them impeached when they're caught in their lies or when they stop doing the job that they promised that they would do or when they're clearly and obviously corrupt. That's a process. It's there. Any elected person can be impeached. I think we need to start doing that more. That's me. That's my opinion. The other thing, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18. All right. So I don't understand how this has gotten completely out of whack, but it's the Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18 is the one that's often called the elastic clause. So Article 1, Section 8 spells out the 17 things that Congress was given the power to do. But then number 18 is the necessary and proper clause. But the part that everybody forgets, and for some reason the Supreme Court hasn't even brought this back up lately, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, to make all laws which are necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. Okay? So they have the power to make all the laws necessary to carry out the 17 things listed beforehand, necessary and proper for carrying out the foregoing powers, and all other powers best vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or any department thereof. So the necessary and proper clause, often called the elastic clause, everybody forgets the foregoing powers portion of that, which completely changes the definition of it. It goes back to Federalist 45 and the 10th Amendment, which go hand in hand. Federalist 45, Madison says that the government powers, the federal government, the general government powers are few and defined, where the state powers are vast and infinite. And then, of course, the 10th Amendment says that any power not in the Constitution goes to the states. Those two things go hand in hand. Why have we allowed our government to do what it's done? I'm yet to find the answer to that. It's been 120 years, 140 years that our government's just blatantly ignoring the Constitution, doing whatever they want without constitutional justification or authorization. You don't have to be a genius to read it and see that. Well, Peter, you're not a constitutional lawyer. You're just a guy. You can't interpret the Constitution like that. Yes, I can. Because the Constitution was made for we the people. It was made to be simple enough for us to read and understand ourselves. We don't need constitutional lawyers and judges to interpret the necessary and proper clause. It doesn't need to be interpreted. It's right there. It's plain English. Tell me where I'm wrong. 10 minutes left in the show. I'd love to give it to one of you out there who's smarter than me. 512-248-8252. Tell me where I'm wrong. We don't need lawyers. We don't need constitutional legal experts to interpret the Constitution for us. We just need to stand up for what it says again. 330 million citizens in this country. 330 million citizens. How many of them do you think have actually read the U.S. Constitution? You know, it's funny to me how the legal immigrants to this country are some of the most patriotic people in our country at all. Like, really, really patriotic people. And people that born here hate the place. That's a funny paradigm. Partly because the people that immigrate here legally, well, they have to read the Constitution. They have to learn it. They have to pass that test. People born here don't. It's like Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, the escaped slave, who gave the speech, the Independence Day speech, where he was like, "This isn't a black person holiday. We're not free." Frederick Douglass, who started his career with the belief that the U.S. Constitution was a slaveholder's document, written by slaveholders, a pro-slavery, keep slavery document. That's what he thought. Until he read it. Once he sat down and read the Constitution himself, once he studied its meaning, he completely turned around. Frederick Douglass, a man who was a slave, was able to see that the Constitution was his best hope for freedom. And the best anti-slavery document that the Founding Fathers could come up with at the time, and still come out the other side with a nation. So why is it a man who actually was a slave can come to that conclusion, but people today can't? 200 years later. Because they stopped reading it. They stopped studying it for themselves. That's what we got to get back to. There's only a handful of things that we can do to bring our country back if we want to keep it as the constitutional republic it was supposed to be. There's only a handful of things that we can do to bring it back to that without violence. Got to find people to elect that understand that the purpose of government is to protect my rights, not to give me stuff or make me feel good, to protect my rights. We need to educate the populace so that they understand their power in this role, in their role in this, understand their power when they get called to a jury duty. We need to elect sheriffs that know the Constitution inside and out, frontwards and backwards. We need sheriffs who, when they put their hand on the Bible and raise the other hand and swear the oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, they mean it. Education's number one. We got to educate the sheriffs that are out there. We got to educate the John Q. public that's out there. We got to start a lot earlier educating the kids. Because by the time they get to teenage years, it's too late to start over. Oh, it's not too late, but it's a lot harder to start over then. What else? What else can we do? Yeah, we can call our representatives and protest and all of those things, but how far have those things gotten us so far? All politics is local. Everything comes down to local. The federal government really doesn't have a whole lot of power when your local government is solid, when your sheriff is solid. You get the people in your local government to be good, strong supporters of the constitutional and the constitutional principles, then maybe you can go from your town to get your county full of those kinds of people. Doesn't have to take the catastrophe like the pandemic. I mean, it was kind of nice to have all the sheriffs standing up during the COVID-19 pandemic. There was quite a few sheriffs that stood up and said, I'm not going to enforce this silly rule. I'm not going to do that. Sheriffs that stood up and said there are going to be First Amendment sanctuaries or Second Amendment sanctuaries. I'm not going to stop protesting because of a mask mandate. That's a start. A lot of sheriffs started to realize that their oath is to the Constitution first. There are 3,085 sheriffs in this country. How many of them are willing to do that? Well, in 1994, when Congress tried to amend when Congress did amend the Brady Bill and wanted sheriffs to get commandeered for background check stuff with the Brady Bill, and they threatened sheriffs with jail time and fines if they didn't comply with the ATF. How many of those sheriffs stood up? Out of 3,085, how many of them realized that that was a violation of the Constitution and stood up against our federal government? I want to say 5. Not nearly. Well, sounds like it's the end. Thank you very much, Colonel Ford, for joining me as my guest this evening. Thank you, Mike, my producer. I can't do the show without you. Thank you, listeners and callers. You're why we do this show. Until next week, protect your liberties. Once they're gone, there's no getting them back. And if you're listening live on RBN, stay tuned for Edge of Darkness with Jeffrey Bennett. God bless America. And more things made in USA. It's the least we can do for the red, white, and blue. We must take America back. We must take America back.